Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, Fallout 4 has never blown me away in terms of visuals, but then again, the series as a whole is hardly known for its graphical prowess. It's a factor somewhat overshadowed by the fantastic open worlds and immersive storytelling that most of these games present. Still, for those of us looking to make the post-apocalypse beautiful, there are plenty of mods that allow for this, and with that I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Can It Run ... insert game title here. This is the series where we take older games and give them a visual overhaul just to see how well they run on the hardware that would otherwise handle the unmodded or vanilla game just fine. Why do we do this? Well, because we can. Plus, it's always interesting to see what sort of performance impact certain modifications have. So Fallout 4 is hardly an old game, it released in 2015. Actually, that's a lot longer ago than I thought. Over the last 4.5 years, we've seen many mods, a new Fallout game, and a fair share of Bethesda-related controversy. Fallout games tend to be my go-to games. Whenever I think to myself, why do I have nothing to play? I always end up running Fallout 3, New Vegas, or Fallout 4. And sometimes just exploring the maps doing nothing is enough to keep me engaged for hours. When I'm bored of that, the modder in me comes out to play. So my system, comprising of a Ryzen 5 1600 and 5700 XT, will handle this game at 4K just fine. There will be a few dips here and there, but on average the high settings mean we'll see 60 FPS with the default frame rate cap left in place. I tend to stay away from ultra settings in most games, as sometimes the performance sacrifice isn't worth the small graphical gain. This varies on a game-by-game basis, but force of habit always has me steering clear of maximum presets. For the visual overhaul, I've gone with PRC, or Photorealistic Commonwealth, from Looping, as well as Vivid Weathers from Manga Club at the Fallout 4 Nexus. I wish I could apply Vivid Weathers to the UK right now, as it's been raining since November. There we go. Links for the mods will be down below, of course. Now, I didn't install the Fallout 4 texture pack from Steam because it's 50 gigabytes, mate, and from what I've seen, the differences are subtle, but the performance loss isn't. At 4K with the 5700 XT and the ENB enabled on its own, first of all, the same scene runs at about half the frame rate that I previously demonstrated. Just over 30 was the average in more built-up areas. As we take on the super mutants here, this will drop a little more. If we then apply Vivid Weathers as well, the frame rate won't really change, which was expected. As always, the graphical modifications I use won't be to everyone's tastes, but that's the beauty of having so many mods available, thanks to the plethora of dedicated creators out there. Personally, I think this combination looks very good. You can of course enable or disable depth of field. It's very subtle with the default settings, which I really like, and I found it cost me about 2 to 3 more frames. I took a little stroll with the DOF setting enabled just to show you how it looks, and as we made our way along this desolate broken road, the grey skies and moody atmosphere really added to the whole most of your friends and family are gone vibe. We'll see how these tweaks are handled by a couple more graphics cards momentarily, but I wanted to see what we could expect in Diamond City first of all. Again, the results were similar, with depth of field both on and off, and during both overcast and sunny situations, the frame rate remained very similar, though as I said before, these weather changes won't have any effect on frame rate on their own, at least from what I could tell. The ENB is the taxing part. So let's see what a modern entry-level graphics card can do here first of all. This is the GTX 1650 Super, and I'd recommend this card to anyone looking for a 60 FPS 1080p gaming experience with a £150 budget in mind. I've kept the frame rate cap enabled as I tend to see issues arise when removing it, so with the vanilla settings and the high preset once again, we'll average 60 FPS with this GPU. There will be some drops below that, and with the frame rate cap in place, it gives us a pretty solid target to try and match with the modded game. Just how close to 60 FPS can we get with these enhancements enabled? Well, I took another walk around town and eventually bumped into the same ghouls that had hindered my passing just moments ago. Now most of the footage has featured overcast weather, and no, that isn't the only weather settings available here, but I think the grey skies look the best and work well with the atmosphere of the game and in combination with this ENB. As we got closer to the built up city, the frame rate was affected, and I'm playing once again with depth of field turned off, as this time round we were seeing about 4 to 5 frames less with it enabled. Now whether this drop in performance is worth it is entirely up to you, but if you've played through the game and are looking to make a few changes, second, third, fourth or maybe even 10th time around, then messing around with mods is always fun. With the GTX 1650 Super handling itself fairly well, I decided to go back a few years and test out an old Nvidia flagship, the GTX 480 to be precise. For as little as £20 here in the UK, you could be the proud owner of what was the best GPU on the market. What it lacks in ability in 2020, it makes up for in its power to make even the coldest rooms of your home roasting hot. I was surprised to see that even this can handle Fallout 4 with the high settings at 1080p with at least 30 FPS, which was honestly quite surprising. But when you realise that this card was only 5 years old when the game launched, it's a little less impressive. Not as impressive as how quiet the card stayed during operation. This title and this ageing Fermi beast get along quite well together. For 60 FPS, the low preset is where you want to stay. Honestly, Fallout 4 doesn't look too different at low than it does at high, providing you've still got anti-aliasing enabled like we have here. TAA to be precise. I went to take on the ghouls in the usual spot, and even when I was swamped by a horde of them, the frame rate remained pretty sturdy. Low settings is the way to go with a card like this though. Enabling the graphical mods takes a serious toll on performance, and immediately turning off depth of field means an increase from 18 to 22 FPS, so at least we're exceeding 20 if that's any sort of achievement to be proud of. For this segment I was recording internally with Msi Afterburner for simplicity's sake, and contrary to what you may think, this didn't have any negative effect on the frame rate, though it certainly can do if you are using a weaker CPU or the graphics card isn't bottlenecking anyway. The 480 was certainly the limiting factor here. As we made our way out of town though at 900p, we saw a jump to 30 FPS, which will remain the average during wasteland exploration. 900p will guarantee a more stable result though. There will be a few drops that still remain. 900p with this mod seems to make the difference between this resolution and Full HD less distinguishable, if you know what I mean. It is a little blurrier as expected, don't get me wrong, but it's not as noticeable as the difference between the two resolutions when playing the game in vanilla mode. Now I wouldn't recommend using these mods with anything less powerful than a GTX 480 or the AMD equivalent, but honestly the 480 isn't the card it used to be, so even if you have what was originally advertised as a budget graphics card from within the last few years, it's certainly worth trying out graphical enhancements like this for this game, because you never know what sort of performance you can expect until you try it. Personally, I think these two modifications look great in combination. All links will be down in the description below, but the toll taken on the game was actually pretty heavy, even when using the 5700 XT, though it's no surprise considering we were running at 4K. 1080p is certainly the way to go with most cards. So to end, I thought I'd just give you a little slideshow of screenshots to look at, because like with a lot of ENBs, it's the screenshots that really bring out the graphical changes. I've tried to capture a few different weather conditions at a few locations, and to be honest, I think these shots look really good. I really do enjoy playing the game this way. I've played through Fallout 4 a few times, so switching it up a little bit with mods is certainly what I'll be doing on my next playthrough, and I'll probably keep these settings that I've used in this video. The ENB in combination with the vivid weathers really does make this stand out and sort of adds a whole new feel to the game. Especially at night time too, you know, in those abandoned locations. It gives the game a sort of scarier feel. I really like how it's ended up after just installing 2 mods. With all that said and done though, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Can It Run ... insert game title here. This has been Fallout 4. To be honest, it's not a bad looking game anyway, but if you do want to make some modifications to it, there are plenty of options available on the Nexus and of course through Fallout 4's modding menu in-game. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to leave a like on it. Leave a dislike if you didn't. I apologise for any background whistling you may have heard. There is a budgie present, and he heard some birds in the bushes and just went off on one, really, and hasn't stopped whistling for about half an hour, so yeah. Anyway then, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you all in the next one.